Aceh TV kebanggaan urang Aceh.
The flaring and venting of natural gas adds to climate change. It emits some 390 million tons of carbon dioxide every year. The amount of gas burnt is about 1/3 of the European Union's annual gas consumption. Billions of dollars are simply going up in smoke. For decades, national and private oil companies have been burning the gas associated with oil production. Natural gas is released when oil is produced, but is less profitable, especially in countries that lack sufficient regulation, infrastructure and markets.
Gas flaring is a very serious problem today. We estimate that 150 billion cubic meters of gas are flared.
Rashad Kaldani has recently been leading efforts by the public-private Global Gas Flaring Reduction Partnership launched by the World Bank in 2002. It helps countries and companies overcome barriers to cut flaring.
It's equivalent to 390 million tons of CO2 emissions. This is more than the amount that's being covered under the Kyoto mechanisms right now.
Eliminating gas flaring worldwide would reduce more CO2 emissions than all the projects currently registered under the Kyoto Protocol's Clean Development Mechanism, the landmark agreement between nations to reduce emissions by 2012. Total elimination's impossible. Some flaring is required for safety, but some countries flare more gas than necessary. These flares are so big, they can be studied from space.
Over this 15-year time period from 1992 to 2006, there's been very little reduction so far in gas flaring, despite the fact that global oil production on an annual basis has gone up. So that's an indication that efforts to reduce gas flaring are producing some results.
Flaring happens all over the world, but mostly in fewer than 20 countries. Nigeria is one of the biggest polluters.
This is the gas flaring in Nigeria. This is the Niger Delta here, and there's a combination of onshore and offshore gas flares. This is one of the largest collections of gas flares anywhere in the world.
Oil is big business in Nigeria. Exports bring in $46 billion a year.
The economy depends largely on revenue from the oil sector, and it accounts for over 80% of the total foreign exchange earning.
According to the Nigerian government, the oil industry burns some 24 billion cubic meters of gas annually. This is enough to power half of Africa for a year. Ironically, most Nigerians are desperately short of energy.
55 or 60% don't have access to electricity, and that's very poor. So really there's a tremendous market for gas domestically for our power sector.
Successive governments claim they have tried to eliminate gas flaring since it was regulated in 1984.
Before the President Olusegun Obasanjo's administration in 1999, what we decided to do is penalize international companies some amount of money for the volume of gas that they flare. But we since found out that that didn't work, because when they looked at the economics, it was better for them to flare the gas than invest money in gas gathering, in gas utilization projects.
The Nigerian government could have insisted, but as a majority shareholder would have had to fund over half the cost. The oil companies highlight their problems.
Flaring is a complex issue because oil is often found in remote locations that do not have a market for the associated gas. So the first challenge is often to find or create a market for this gas, then to put in the large investments that are needed to collect the gas and take it to customers, and also to work with governments to put in place the right regulations and fiscal framework to allow these investments to occur.
It's a monumental waste of our natural resources, resources that ought to translate into other goods, to health, to education, and so on. The resources are simply wasted.
Ingin masuk TV? Ketika kamu menonton acara Bumi Hijau di televisi kesayanganmu, kamu bisa mengirimkan kritik dan saran melalui Facebook kami dengan cara klik like, komen on TV, suarakan visimu, dan setelah kamu menuliskan komentar, kamu bisa klik submit. Bagi komentar terbaik akan ditayangkan di televisi kesayanganmu, dan kota dengan tanggapan terinspiratif akan kami wawancarai. Tanggapanmu sangat berarti.
This gas is often burned next to communities that have no electricity. As a fuel, it offers a cleaner alternative to coal or oil.
Some of these communities are, I would say, below 50,000 inhabitants, because they produce small gas, and the distance to pipe them into a major hub is so large that it will make the economics not so good. But if you can put some gas utilization project in that community, and then it could actually help the economy.
It's finally happening in Nigeria. Bonny Kingdom is a community of 70,000 people in the Delta. Oil and gas companies have invested in a local small-scale power distribution system. It provides near constant power for most islanders, unheard of in many areas of the Delta. The benefits are varied.
You get new businesses arising. We've got an internet cafe. The microeconomy is developing in such a way that there's less dependency on the industry.
The operation covers its costs by supplying affordable electricity to the community. The oil industry pays for the setup and then becomes a shareholder in the business.
And the industries benefit from it by getting a much better relation with the community, but also from simple things like sickness levels go down, your workers go home, and their food is not spoiled because your fridge was still working.
The initial investment in Bonny Utility Company came from firms such as Shell, Total and ENI, based on Bonny Island. Nigeria LNG manages the investment. They liquefy natural gas for export to North America and Europe.
Nigeria LNG was initially conceived to be an enabler into putting flares out in Nigeria. However, Nigeria has a lot of gas reserves, and NLNG can also help monetize those gas reserves as part of its business of making liquefied natural gas.
So the joint venture, including all of its shareholders and the government, has invested $2.5 billion over the last 5 years to put in place the infrastructure to collect the gas from across the Niger Delta and take it to customers.
According to experts, natural gas is expected to become the second most important global fuel in the next decade, turning the export of gas into a growing industry. Diversifying in this way reduces Nigeria's dependence on oil exports, bringing more security to the country.
The energy scene has been changing a lot. We were back in the 90s, beginning of the year 2000, in low price energy, and nobody was caring about, energy scarcity, energy availability, peak oils, and so on. And now we have a very different scene. Everybody is a little bit nervous about what is the future of energy.
Capturing and using otherwise wasted gas in Nigeria has allowed Shell to reduce flaring by a reported 40% over the last 10 years. But what about the future?
Our aim is to eliminate routine flaring from our worldwide operations, including Nigeria, by 2009.
Well, the 2008 gas flaring deadline is a target of government, and government is extremely serious about it. But what's important now is that the rate at which the gas flaring is going down shows that the policy is working. When we get to 2008, if there are any problems, I think government will sit down with the international oil companies and see how we can remove more barriers so that we could get to the minimum level of gas flaring.
Governments will change hands by May 2007. We've heard these rhetorics before. It needs the political and economic will of the drivers of the process to take the matter very seriously.
There are some places in the world where oil is produced and virtually no associated gas is flared or vented. What's more, this has been possible for half a century. Government regulation in consultation with the oil industry has played a significant role.
In the case of Alberta, which is the largest producing province in Canada, our agency was created in 1938 to reduce flaring. There was a lot of flaring going on at the time.
Ingin masuk TV? Ketika kamu menonton acara Bumi Hijau di televisi kesayanganmu, kamu bisa mengirimkan kritik dan saran melalui Facebook kami dengan cara klik like, komen on TV, suarakan visimu, dan setelah kamu menuliskan komentar, kamu bisa klik submit. Bagi komentar terbaik akan ditayangkan di televisi kesayanganmu, dan kota dengan tanggapan terinspiratif akan kami wawancarai. Tanggapanmu sangat berarti.
Our world is changing fast. Our country is changing fast. Keep up with it all. On televisi Bumi Hijau.